The House will come to order. Prayer by the chaplain. Members, today let's pause for a brief moment of meditation and reflection and thanks in our own individual tradition.
In honor of Women's History Month, a prayer by Reverend Jude Geiger. Prayer for the women through the ages. Spirit of renewal, God of many names, and one transforming and abundant love, we turn this month in our nation's life to reflect on the stories, the heritage, and the struggles of women throughout the ages. We seek to learn from all those voices that have been left unheard. May we pause before the silences of the ages, find who has been left out, and craft new ways of inclusion for every week and every month. May this spiritual practice bring out the voices of all those struggling, all those left apart. May we let go of our old assumptions and cold comforts of what is the normal to live by, and let it be a standard that is rooted in compassion, in inclusivity, in diversity. May this month of reflection teach us to search for those stories that are different from our own. Mother of possibility in the finding, may we come to know ourselves changed, renewed where we are dry, hopeful where we are lost, and open where we are shut. Amen.
Amen. The chaplain for today is Reverend Dr. Jules Erickson from All Saints Lutheran Church, Cottage Grove, Minnesota. Pledge of Allegiance. Members, please remain standing and recite the Pledge of Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. The clerk will take the roll.
Will the chief clerk please call the names of the members who have not yet answered the quorum call?
Ackland. Ackland. Ackland present. Baker.
Baker present.
Baker present. Bernardi. Bernardi. Davids.
David's present.
Davids present. Davney.
Dabney present.
Davney.
Dabney present.
Davney present. Damath. Damath present. Frankie. Frankie present. Franzen. Franzen present. Gruenhagen.
Gruenhagen present.
Gruenhagen present. Hamilton. Hamilton present. Hausman.
Hausman present.
Hausman present. Katiza Watun.
Katiza Watun present.
Katiza Watun present. Lucero. Lucero present. Pryor.
Pryor present.
Pryor present. Thompson.
Thompson present.
Thompson present. Youakim. Youakim. Bernardi. Bernardi. Youakim. Oh. Bernardi present. Youakim.
The clerk will close the roll.
Okay.
A quorum is present. The clerk will read the journal of the preceding day.
Journal of the House, 92nd Session, 2022, 74th day, St. Paul, Minnesota, Monday, March 7th, 2022.
If there is no objection, further reading of the journal will be dispensed with, and the journal will be approved as corrected by the chief clerk. Hearing no objection, the journal is approved as corrected by the chief clerk. Reports of committees and divisions. There's a copy of this order of the business at the front desk and online. If there's no objection, the reports will be adopted. Hearing no objection, the reports are adopted. Second reading of House files.
Second reading House File number 3015.
Second reading.
Second reading House File 3254.
Second reading.
Second reading House File 3308.
Second
And
reading.
second reading House File 3677.
Second reading. Introduction of House files. The following House files have been offered for introduction today. The chief clerk will report the House files and give them their first reading.
Introduction and first reading of House Files 4116 through 4227.
First reading, House Files 4116 through 4227. Messages from the Senate.
Message from the Senate, Madam Speaker. I hereby announce the adoption by the Senate of the following Senate concurrent resolution herewith transmitted. Senate Concurrent Resolution number 15, a Senate Concurrent Resolution adopting deadlines for the 2022 regular session. The message is signed Cal R. Ludeman, Secretary of the Senate. The concurrent resolution is being referred to the Committee on Rules and Legislative Administration. Messages from the Senate. Madam Speaker, I hereby announce the passage by the Senate of the following Senate files herewith transmitted. Senate file numbers 2666 and 3372. The message is signed Cal R. Ludeman, Secretary of the Senate.
First reading of Senate files.
First reading of Senate file number 2666, an act relating to education. The bill is being referred to the Committee on Education Policy. First reading, Senate file number 3372, an act relating to health. The bill is being referred to the Committee on Higher Education, Finance, and Policy.
Reports from the Committee on Rules and Legislative Administration.
Winkler from the Committee on Rules and Legislative Administration, pursuant to Rules 1.21 and 3.33, designates the following bills to be placed on the calendar for the day for Thursday, March 10th, 2022, and establishes a pre-filing requirement for amendments offered to the following bills: House File numbers 3420 and 2746. Winkler from the Committee on Rules and Legislative Administration, pursuant to Rules 1.21, 3.33, designates the following bills to be placed on the calendar for the day for Monday, March 14th, 2022, and establishes a pre-filing requirement for amendments offered to the following bills: House File numbers 2819, 2945, 3249, and 2353.
Calendar for the day. The first bill on the calendar for the day is House File 2746. The clerk will report the bill.
House File number 2746, number 2 on the calendar for the day, an act relating to public safety, the first engrossment.
I recognize the member from Hennepin, Representative Youakim, to describe the bill.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Thank you, members. Today before us, we have House File 2746 that would make a few clarifications in the Hometown Assistance Program. I would like to thank the members of the body who voted to pass Hometown Heroes Assistance Bill last session within the Public Safety Bill. We passed it off the House floor, and I don't think I've ever been prouder of my colleagues. Your actions last session set the Minnesota Firefighters Initiative on its path to provide needed support to firefighters across the state. Last year's bill had bipartisan support and provided MnFire with funds to aid firefighters with training around cardiac care, mental health supports, and monetary assistance for those who had been diagnosed with cancer or heart disease. These critical illnesses affect those in the fire service at a greater percentage than the general population. More than 12% of all firefighters will develop heart disease, and more than 68% of all firefighters will develop some form of cancer in their lifetime. For more details on the program, you've been emailed a one-pager that describes the good work that MnFire is doing across the state. As with many bills that we pass, this bill needed a few tweaks. This bill here in front of us makes clarifications around the program start date, clarifies the definition of critical illness, and changes the flow of funds from the Office of the Justice Program Partnership to State Fire Marshal, which had been intended agency to oversee these funds all along. I would like to thank Representative O'Neill for her assistance with the language around the definition of critical illness, as well as Chair Mariani and Chair Moran for hearing the bill in their committees. Members, that's the bill we have before us today, and I stand for questions.
There are no amendments at the desk. The clerk will give the bill its third reading.
Third reading, House File number 2746.
Third reading. The member from Wabasha, Representative Drought-killed.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Thank you, Representative Youakim, for the bill. Madam Speaker, would the author yield?
She will yield. Representative Drought-killed.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Would Representative Youakim, would you refresh us on the history of this bill and where it came from, how the need was expressed, when it was expressed, and how it migrated to what we see before us today?
Representative Youakim.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Speaker. Representative Drought-killed, thanks for asking that. Actually, Minnesota Firefighter Initiative started a little over 3 years ago. It started off as a hotline. They raised the funds to do a hotline for officers, for firefighters to call in when they needed help with issues, particularly around PTSD. Within a week, they had fielded so many calls that they realized there was more of an issue out there than they thought. So they started putting a program together and what that would look like, in figuring out they'd already been doing training for cardiac care with fire departments on a very slim budget. They'd already been trying to help with mental health supports, but they really wanted to dig in around cancer. As I said in my opening statement, 68% of all firefighters get some form of cancer in their lifetime. So they came forward with this bill to help fund MnFire initiative that works all across the state. And we had it in a hearing in public safety one year, and as you know, sometimes it takes another try, so we had it in public safety the following year, and then it went through and got put in Ways and Means, and we passed it off the floor last year.
Representative Drought-killed.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Would the author continue to yield?
She will yield. Representative Drought-killed.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Representative Youakim, so on page 2 of the bill, it talks about the payments. Could you clarify for us, if I'm a hometown hero and I've got heart disease and I'm going to be looking for a payment from the government under your bill here, do I qualify for up to $20,000 one time, or can I have up to $20,000 multiple times?
Representative Youakim.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Representative Drazkowski, you would qualify for up to $20,000 per type of illness. So if you had heart disease and then was unlucky enough to also have cancer, you could get 2 payments.
Representative Drazkowski.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Would the author continue to yield?
She will yield. Representative Drazkowski.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Representative Youakim, doesn't workman's comp cover this? Tell us about that.
Representative Youakim.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Workman's comp does not cover this to an extent that it should. As you remember, that most of the firefighters in our state are paid on call. They're under the insurance of their current employer, and sometimes things just aren't covered. And you know, with the rate of cancer and heart disease among our firefighters, I think this is the least we can do to have their backs.
Representative Drazkowski.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Thank you, Representative Youakim. Well, members, I don't know that firefighters get cancer or heart disease at any higher rates than anybody else in the population. I wonder, I mean, there's hometown heroes all over our state. We could have a hometown heroes program and fund from the public treasury money for police officers. Is that the next bill, Representative Youakim? I don't know. We could have one for ambulance drivers. We could have one for EMT people. We could have one for farmers. Farmers are my hero. We could have one for factory workers. We could have one for frontline workers that work at retail. We could have one for nurses, a nurses' hometown heroes program. They get heart disease and cancer too. And Madam Speaker, we have before us a bill that was brought forward to us through this body during the COVID shutdown of Governor Walz that he brought forward through here, or that was brought forward through here. It was a one-time thing. Now, members, if you look at the bottom of page 1 of the bill, line 1.20 and 1.21, this was a one-time expenditure brought forward through and during the scare of COVID. And that's when it was brought through here. And now we have this thing morphing into a full-time, every year, entitlement payment for people in one segment, one area of our economy, of our workforce, of our population here in the state of Minnesota. This is the camel's nose under the tent that's being brought forward by the Democrats to develop more entitlements every year. We're going to have the next group come forward next. It'll be the police officers, then it'll be the ambulance drivers, then the EMTs, then the nurses, the doctors, the pastors, everybody will be coming forward. Members, what are we doing here? Government was not meant to be a charitable organization. And that's what we have in this bill. We have the Democrats' chosen charity here, firefighters, which everybody in this chamber loves their firefighters and the work that they do and the dedication they have to their communities. They're some of the best volunteers and best workers we have in our communities. But so are police officers, so are nurses, so are EMT people, so are retail workers. This is nothing but a perpetual handout being brought forward by the Democrats to pander to a group of people in our state in order to get them to support them in the election. That's what I see it as, members. We can't go down this road. This is a very bad policy. It will set very bad precedent for our state to be paying the full health care costs of people with very terrible diseases. Here's the first piece, and then they're going to go piece after piece after piece until everybody has that situation. This is not what government was designed for. Members, vote no on the bill. Thank you, Representative Youakim. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
The member from Isanti, Representative Johnson.
Madam Speaker, members, Representative Youakim, thank you for bringing this forward. I'm probably one of the few members in this chamber that's actually was a volunteer firefighter. Seeing what they go through, sitting in the smoke and the carcinogens, putting out the fires, pulling people out of burning buildings. I want to thank our volunteer firefighters across the state and even our paid firefighters. In Minnesota, 90% of our firefighters are not full-time, they're not paid on call, they're volunteers living in your communities. Their employers allow them to leave work even when they have deadlines to get stuff done to go protect their communities. Putting the fire out, going to the car accident, dealing with the victims, the mangled bodies, and the death that occur at them. Unfortunately, they do have a higher rate of heart disease. They have a higher rate of cancer. It's because of the work. Unfortunately, it's because of the type of work they do. They've gotten better at it. Their equipment has gotten better, but it's expensive. And OSHA has not made it easier for our local volunteer fire departments, requiring more and more training. If you sign up to join to be a firefighter in your community, by the time you get done with all the training, it might be 2 years before you actually can fight fires, to go inside a burning building. Now, when the original bill creating this Hometown Heroes program was heard, we supported the concept because it helps our firefighters and our volunteers helping our communities who develop cancer, heart disease, and the emotional trauma of what they see as a result of the duties as a firefighter. We had a couple minor concerns on how the program would be administered because we wanted to make sure the funds went to the firefighters and those that needed it, and that a big chunk of money wouldn't be swallowed up in bureaucracy. I offered an amendment to cap costs at administering the grants. Representative Youakim, you said you'd consider what would be a suitable cap. But as of today, there is no cap on that. And who's administering the program can pretty much take how much they want for administrative costs. That's something that we do need to fix. House File 2746 makes some changes to the Hometown Heroes program that we support, including clarifying that the diagnosis eligibility for the grants from the program from last year's August 1st effective date. And the fiscal agent has been changed from the Office of Justice Programs to the State Fire Marshal's Office. But also included in this bill was changes to eligibility for the grants from conditions typically associated with the profession, including cancer, heart disease, and emotional trauma, to critical illness, as defined by a nonprofit giving the grants. It's bad legislative policy not to define in statute parameters for the grants using taxpayer dollars. The author did amend it to tighten it up a little bit in ways and means, but it still needs more work. The language is better than it was, but I still have concerns that the definition isn't tight enough. I will support this bill because it does contain some needed fixes to the program, but I do have a feeling we'll be back again next year to further clarify eligibility and to put a cap on the administrative costs. I do ask the members on my house to support this and to support our volunteer firefighters and all our firefighters across the state, because what they go through really does help our communities. Thank you.
The member from Sibley, Representative Gruenhagen.
Well, thank you, Madam Chair. Yeah, if Representative Youakim would yield for a question.
She will yield. Representative Gruenhagen.
Well, thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Representative Youakim. There's a Senate file on this also. Can you just outline briefly what some of the differences would be between the Senate file and the House file?
Representative Youakim.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Representative Gruenhagen, right now the Senate files in public safety, and I probably shouldn't be saying the other body's name on the floor. Sorry about that. And actually our bill is, as Representative Johnson mentioned, we tightened up the definition thanks to some work from myself and Representative O'Neill around what a critical illness is, and that is the only difference so far.
Representative Gruenhagen.
Well, thank you, Madam Chair. Thanks for your response, Representative Youakim. Does the Senate bill that you know of, does that contain a cap?
Representative Youakim. Representative Gruenhagen, I don't think she heard you. Could you repeat your question?
Yes, Madam Chair, I'll do that. Representative Youakim, if you'll yield, does the Senate bill, do you know, does that contain a cap that was talked about by Representative Johnson?
Representative Youakim.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Representative Gruenhagen, we received a detailed fiscal note in the House bill, and right now the administrative costs are sitting under 5% from MnFire, and I had already talked to Representative Johnson and Representative O'Neill that if things go above 5%, I'm more than happy to revisit it this next year.
Representative Gruenhagen.
Oh, thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Representative Youakim.
The member from Stearns, Representative Tice.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. This is always a tough one to talk about for me, but I do believe in absolutely this bill and what it means to our firefighters. I worked for several years with Jeff Howe as well on this and learned a ton, whether it was with videos and stuff that he showed, but what really hit me was the fact that there are so many women coming up with cancer now that are firefighters that we hadn't seen before. I'm really grateful for this bill for many reasons. One is my cousin Dan in Watkins, who is a volunteer firefighter. And I know those guys drop everything and they serve. No questions asked. They serve. And when he was a little kid, his family experienced a fire in their home. And it was amazing how our community just came out to help the firefighters. In fact, to the point where I think they were finally saying, would you people please go do something else while we fight the fire because you're getting in our way? But my cousin also died a year ago in December in a fire. It was in Maple Grove. The fire started at 6 o'clock at night. My other cousin, her sister Teresa, was there until about 1 or so. And they said, you know what, we're going to not be looking right now. We're going to wait till things cool down. We'll start again at 8 o'clock. So at 8 o'clock, I'm like, I can't stand it. I got to go. So I drove down to Maple Grove. When I got there, it's funny how things work, isn't it? My brother's walking to his car. He had showed up at 8 o'clock so that somebody would be with Teresa. I was there for about, I don't remember, it was maybe about an hour or so. And then two amazing men came with the saddest news we'll ever hear. One was, and I was telling the folks outside, they were the most amazing people I'd ever met. One was from this Maple Grove Fire Department, Patrick Ferens, who was Deputy Chief, and the other was the Maple Grove Police Department Detective, Steve Parker. So they show up and they say that they found somebody, and then they ask questions about my cousin. Who was she? What was she like? What did she have for illnesses? Because she had a diabetes pump. And they were just taking all the time in the world to answer questions. At one point, I almost passed out because my cousin said, "Can I see my sister?" And I thought, no, we're not going to. But these two men very graciously said, no, you don't want to do that, and we're not going to allow you to. But they spent a lot of time with us. It was absolutely nothing that I've ever experienced before. In the most heartbreaking of times, here were two folks who were the kindest, gentlest, most sincere folks in the whole world. And they do this every day after finding horrible things, dealing with horrible things. I would stand here all day and tell you how dedicated I am to that. And the PTSD, I learned more about PTSD talking with Jeff Howe. I had no clue. Not only was he in the Guard and served overseas, but he also served as a fireman for many years. And he talked about some of his PTSD from his firefighting days. I had no clue. I truly did not think about it. When I saw the fire department and I saw the firemen, I never thought about what they were going through and how they dealt with it and such, but I sure do now. And then to think that they have to deal with some illnesses because of their job. I don't care if it is a free ride, because what these folks do when everybody's running away and running into knowing what can happen to them at some day or another scares the bejesus out of me. I would never do it. But I'm so grateful that they do. So grateful that they do. And I will support them till the end. And with that, I would just thank Representative Youakim for making sure that I'm included on these bills. It might not sound like the best bill in the whole wide world, but I will tell you what, nothing ever is. And I'm sure a firefighter will tell you there's no best day for them ever. So with that, thank you, and I will be supporting this bill.
The member from Anoka, Representative Barr.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Will the author yield for a question, please?
She will yield. Representative Barr.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Representative Youakim, could you just help me with one question here, please? On line 2.8 and also on, turn the page over, 1.10, it talks about critical illnesses and what's covered under this bill. Cancer as well as other illnesses is on 1.10, and then on the flip side, the next page, 2.8, it says critical illnesses such as. So is there a limit to this? Is there multiple diseases, multiple things that could be covered as opposed to just heart disease and cancer and PTSD, which are the three things specifically mentioned in the bill? Are there anything else that could be added to this? Could this grow farther?
Representative Youakim.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Thank you, Representative Barr. So what that does is we had to change the language to critical illness to match up with the insurance policy that MnFire bought. We wanted to make sure that state dollars stretched as far as it could. So they bought an insurance policy that's regulated by the state so that they could provide this up to $20,000 payout. So we make the reference to 60A, which is where the insurance policies are in our state statutes. Right now, they're working with cardiac disease and cancer, but the insurance policies do have other critical illnesses, and they may be helping with more mental health than they were before with this policy, because it was a really smart thing to do for them to make their dollars stretch further.
Representative Barr.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. So the way I understand the answer here is that we just conform to insurance regulation, the insurance policy that the state is actually buying. So if the state is buying an insurance policy, why are we giving cash payments to firefighters if we're already covering this with an insurance policy that the state has already paid? And no, I didn't ask you to yield, Representative Youakim. That's not a question. That's just a statement. It's a rhetorical statement. Let's maybe phrase it that way. Sorry. I know you were prepared, but no, it's if the state is already buying an insurance policy to cover these things, why? I mean, you just, all right. We shouldn't do that. We shouldn't talk to each other when we're off. Yeah, sorry. The state's already buying an insurance policy. Why are we giving cash payments to firefighters? And thank you.
The member from Freeborn, Representative Bennett.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. And I'm very appreciative of this Hometown Heroes bill. It's an issue I've been working on since 2015 when I first came into office. I work closely with local firefighters from Albert Lea and others in my district. And from doing my research, members, I know that firefighters, without a doubt, are at more risk of things like cancers because they're going into this toxic smoke and fumes constantly. And it's a fact that they are more at risk. So I'm happy that we are able to do something. We're asking them to risk their lives, to go into fires, to protect our property, to protect our lives. And they're risking their lives in more than one way because it can come back to bite them after the fact. I do think this bill has some tightening up that it needs in language, and I hope that it'll come back here better in that way, but it's a good one. And I also, members, would like to tell you about a young man named Brett Boss, who's a firefighter from Albert Lea. He's been a firefighter for a number of years. And I just attended Brett's memorial service 2 weeks ago. And Brett died of cancer. I've got his picture in front of me here. He's 38 years old. It was a very rare cancer that only hits children. But for some reason, he got it 10 years ago. And I believe it was from firefighting. There are other firefighters that go through the same things. And members, I'm glad that we can help them out in this way. Brett worked with me diligently over the last number of years to get this passed. And I'm happy to say, Representative Youakim, that he got to see it come into fruition before he passed away. I don't know if he actually benefited from it, but he got to see it. He worked hard for his firefighting brothers and sisters to get this passed. So I just want to say kudos to Brett. Thank you for the hard work, Brett. And thank you to all of our firefighters for what they do for us. And I hope this bill can help many of them. So thank you, Madam Speaker.
The member from Olmsted, Representative Quam.
Thank you, Madam Speaker and members. And I applaud the intent to do something for the firefighters and the heroes and I would include the first responders. Not all areas are covered the same. Some have fire with EMT and more of a full function. Other areas like mine have first responders that go to not just fires, not just car accidents, but suicides, anything where a person's life or health may be in jeopardy. And these people, I'm not aware that they've got the medical coverage for mental health issues from that. These people, some of them go to, on average, more than 3 calls a day. At the end of the year, with going to all those calls, they maybe get a check for a couple $100. It's not the money. But I also know a lot of these people that you go to a call into the car accident, and later on you find, because it's 2 o'clock in the morning, you find an empty car seat and you discovered there was a child involved. You didn't know. You go to a suicide attempt or suicide, and so many times they're saving a life, and that person doesn't make it. Or they pass away after going to the hospital. I mean, there are good times. My wife, the first time she delivered a baby on a call, I saw her face, and it was great to see. But there are so many other calls because they can't talk to their spouses, to their kids about the tragedies they've been involved in because data privacy. I would find out if there was a newspaper article about a fatal accident. But so you've got these people, the pager goes off, they hear the dispatcher, and they're out the door within 60 seconds because they know seconds count, any time of day or night. And they go through some traumatic experiences which they can't talk to their family about. And that builds up over years. And I've talked with them that have, after so many years, couldn't do it anymore. And anyone that's been involved with the MSRB and emergency services realizes that it's tough to spend a lot of years going through this. I wish this bill, I wholeheartedly think we need to support firefighters, but I do think that when we do these bills, especially for covering some of the trauma in that we look at the other parts of the state where we have people that go through that same thing. And they're not doing it for money. And they don't have any special super coverage. But covering some of the health counseling and some of those aspects, I think we need to look at a broader brush on these first responders. And with that, I'll sit down.
Any further discussion on the bill? The member from Wright, Representative O'Neill.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Thank you, members. Since Representative Youakim mentioned my name, I thought I would just expound on what she said. We've been working together on clarifying and tightening up language. And I'm going to tell you this, members, and I don't often say this. In fact, I don't know if I've ever said this on the House floor before, but we have a gentlewoman's agreement. We will circle back in a year from now and evaluate this bill and make sure it's working exactly as it needs to be, including the cap, including the definition, to make sure that it is doing exactly what it's supposed to do. Now, I've never said that on this House floor before, and usually it's a gentleman's agreement, but it's Women's History Month, and so I'm going to say gentlewoman's agreement. But sometimes not everything can be perfectly defined in law, and here's a great example, and let me explain. The definition that was in before of what illness was did not match up to any insurance policy that could be purchased. So if they bought any insurance policy, it was out of alignment with the statute, which is why we're here. So they changed the definition to critical illness. And we talked about that in public safety, that there's not a definition of critical illness in our statutes. So we connected it to 60A, which is the insurance chapter. Now, Commerce will be looking at it and reviewing it. There'll be checks and balances. But if we can come up with a better definition, we will do that in a year from now. But right now, we need to figure out how to do this and not stop them from being able to buy an insurance policy. And the cap, we will look at again in a year from now. And we could put a cap in, and it probably would prohibit them from doing what they need to do. So I just want to say that we are working. Representative Youakim and I will continue to work. And if more needs to be done a year from now, we will do more. But we have our eyes on this. Be assured, members, we are watching this. And we will revisit this in a year. So I've never said that on the House floor before, but we have a gentlewoman's agreement to continue to work on this and to look very carefully at it. Now, I know that the Senate might have a slightly different version, and maybe this will all be cleared up in a conference committee. I'm not sure. But if that does not happen in the exact way that we think we can make it work, in a year from now, we'll revisit it and we will make it work exactly as we want it to. But that is why it's in 60A, because that is the insurance chapter, and it is regulated by the Department of Commerce. So it will have lots of eyes on it and lots of checks and balances. And I should also say that there is no more money, there's no more appropriation that we are making. This is not an appropriations bill. This is a policy bill so that they can use statute appropriately, because they couldn't come up with insurance policy that matched statute. So that's why we're here. And I would ask for your support. We've got firefighters that are up in our balcony, and thank you for your incredible work and your sacrifice. And we appreciate you, and for all my firefighters at home, I appreciate you. And we could not do what we do in our society without you. So thank you. Thank you, Representative Youakim. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
The member from Ramsey, Representative Mariani.
Thank you, Madam Speaker and members, and I will work to be brief here. My main message today is to encourage us to act on this bill today. I want to thank Chair Youakim for not only carrying this bill this year, but quite frankly, for being such an incredible champion over the years for this community of fine Minnesotans and professionals for this program. Thank you, Representative O'Neill, for working with her across the aisle. I think Representative Tice got it absolutely correct. There's no giveaway here. These are Minnesotans who have volunteered their time, put their lives on the line to make sure that our lives are as safe as possible. This is the least that we together as a people can do for them, was to pass this program last year and to continue to get it right this year. These professionals do face some incredible disparities in terms of illnesses and conditions that are very unique to their profession, whether it's exposure to all sorts of hazardous material that leads to cancer, the incredible stress, Representative Tice spoke about this, I think, quite powerfully, of witnessing human tragedy and what that does in terms of trauma and toxicity to the body and to the mind, which then leads to disproportional rates of cardiac illnesses, even suicide. They have given to us. We are giving back to them. It is the right moral thing to do. But here's my message for right now. This program, first of all, was created by firefighters themselves. I didn't come up with this. Representative Youakim didn't come up with this. We probably could have, but it was them as they sought to help one another and be brothers and sisters together with their common plight. And then they realized they needed their government to be able to step in to complete that circle of giving to one another and of community building in Minnesota. And it took them several years to convince us to move. We finally did that last year. We embedded in this House's Public Safety Criminal Justice Reform Omnibus Bill the funding and the policy to begin this work. Now, let me tell you something. The other body did no such thing, nothing. It took this body to put this issue squarely on the table. We needed to do it through an omnibus bill because there was nothing moving on that side to line up with it. And then we persevered and we stuck with it and we stuck with it because that's what House members do. And in the end, we finally saw the light of wisdom occur in the other body, so much so that this year they even have a bill. It hasn't moved yet. And so today's action should be a powerful way for us to continue to lead as the people's body so that the other body can move and do the right thing. So I want to thank every member of this body who has supported this bill. I want to thank the spirit in which we engage fervently on behalf of Minnesotans, especially these incredible, truly heroes in our state. And much, much deep gratitude to you, Representative Youakim, for your work on this. Thank you, Madam Speaker and members.
The member from Dakota, Representative Hewitt.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, and thank you, Representative Youakim, for this bill. I know you guys are excited to hear from another first responder, but you're going to get it. And Representative Drought-killed, I am looking forward to you and I working on that EMS bill, so let's get together on that, okay? That's what I understood. Maybe I didn't hear you right. So another part that Representative Drought-killed also mentioned is the workman's comp that is paid out to firefighters. When I was a volunteer firefighter only 4 miles from the Capitol here up in Maplewood, I did get hurt on the job. And we had to file a workman's comp claim. We had to go through the process. But if I would have had the income that I made from being a firefighter, it would have been based on $6 a call. They could have paid out a total of what my whole income would have been that year from that, $2,500. Now, I was single back then, and that might have worked out for me or something, but many of these people that work as volunteer firefighters or as full-time firefighters have families. and they need to keep the bills paid and the mortgages and keep food on the table. The sad thing about that same fire department that I served on up in Maplewood was when I was like 22, 23 years old, but most of those men that I served with, and it was mostly men, it's great to see that the fire service has changed in that short a time, but it was mostly men. None of those men I served with, all 33 of them, have passed away before the age of 65. 2 of them made it to 70. I apologize for that. But every time I pick up my phone and go to the Parkside Facebook page, it's an announcement of another funeral. And yes, it is cancer. It is heart disease. This is the right bill for the right time. And I'm so excited our colleagues on the other side of the aisle want to get it right. And we will probably have to keep working on these. But as I said to my good colleague there, Representative Drought-killed, I'm looking to do more bills like this, so we're together on that. Thank you.
The member from Wabasha, Representative Drought-killed.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Thank you, Representative Hewitt. I knew you'd be on the path to socialism. You want to bring them all in here. I understand that. Madam Speaker, for the edification of the body, if we look at the most dangerous occupations, I've got a list. Members, pull it up. Fishing and hunting workers are the top. Logging workers next. Aircraft pilots. Roofers. Construction trades helpers. Refuse and recyclable material collectors. Drivers, sales workers. Number 8 is structural iron and steel workers. Number 9, farmers, ranchers, and other agricultural workers. Number 10, grounds maintenance. And I haven't got to firefighters yet. No doubt there's danger in firefighting. There's dangers in a lot of occupations. But members, if you think that part of the premise of this bill is that firefighting is the most dangerous in this state, you are wrong. Let's write the bill for farmers. Let's write it for roofers. Let's write it for other occupations. If we believe that our firefighters, Representative Hewitt, are not paid properly, then let's include that in our payments to them. Let's make that the bill, not create an entire new category of entitlement for one particular group in this state. Because that's what this bill does. It's wrong-headed. It's a bad approach. If firefighters are not paid properly, let's pay them more in the area that they're supposed to be paid. This is the wrong approach under premises that are incorrect. Thank you, members, for listening. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Any further discussion on the bill? Representative Youakim.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Members, thank you for the spirited discussion today and your heartfelt stories. Firefighters do face cancer, cardiac disease, and mental health challenges at higher rates than the rest of our population just for doing their jobs. Jobs that we ask of them and jobs that many of us don't want to do or aren't able to do. They perform these jobs without hesitation, and we need to have their backs. The Hometown Heroes program is one of the ways we can do that. It is their voices, their stories, and experiences that made this bill a reality, and I thank them for it, and I would ask you for your support and a green vote today.
The clerk will take the roll on the bill. Members, please vote. Will the chief clerk please call the names of the members who've not yet voted?
Baker.
Baker, aye.
Baker, aye. Davids.
David's aye.
Davids, aye. Davney.
Gaffney, aye.
Davney, aye. Gomez.
Gomez, aye.
Gomez, aye. Gruenhagen.
Gruenhagen, aye.
Gruenhagen, aye. Hausman.
Houseman, aye.
Hausman, aye. Heinzman.
Heinzman, no.
Heinzman, no. Katiza Watun.
Katiza Watun, aye.
Katiza Watun, aye. Creshaw.
Grisha, aye.
Creshaw, aye. Pryor.
Pryor, aye.
Pryor, aye. Sandell.
Aye.
Sandell, aye. Swazinski.
Swazinski, aye.
Swazinski, aye.
The clerk will close the roll. There being 120 ayes and 14 noes, the bill is passed and its title agreed to. The next bill on the calendar for the day is House File 3420. The clerk will report the bill.
House File number 3420, number 2 on the calendar for the day, an act relating to drought relief, the second engrossment.
The member from Carleton, the author of the bill, Representative Sundin, to present the bill.
Thank you, Madam Chair and members. House File 3420 provides critical funding to address the historic drought we experienced last year and still continues today. As early as last July, we saw the drought was having negative impacts that were hitting farmers especially hard. As summer turned into fall, thousands of Minnesota farmers experienced real economic setbacks because of the drought, but some had it much worse than others. This bill will provide a much-needed lifeline to those who provide our most basic need, food. The $5.1 million in grants and $5 million in loans provided in House File 3420 won't make every farmer whole, but it may help with a significant bill or an additional expense caused by the drought, and especially for those who need the assistance the most. I'll stand for questions after we hear from Chair Hansen to speak as he speaks on provisions affecting the DNR.
The member from Dakota, Representative Hansen.
Thank you, Madam Speaker and Representative Sundin. If you look at Article 2, there are a number of components that provide help to the public resource that help out with forestry. Reforestation is important not only in the rural areas, but in the urban and the suburban areas as well. With the drought, which I should note is ongoing, the ongoing drought, we provide $300,000 to the Commissioner of Natural Resources for dealing with well interference. If your well's going dry, there are often conflicts, and this is money to help with resolving those conflicts. $3 million from the general fund to the Commissioner of DNR for grants to municipalities, townships, tribal governments for public water supplies. Again, in the ongoing drought, this helps out with water efficiency. That's going to help out help conserving water, but also helping you keep your water bills low. $4.5 million out from the Commissioner of DNR to local and tribal governments to deal with shade trees to help keep them alive. And then finally, $5.55 million that will be for grants out to the DNR to replace drought-killed seedlings. So again, the DNR provides trees out to communities and to private foresters. We lost millions of trees during the drought. We are still going to be losing them. This money helps restore those and helps out our forest products industry. Thank you.
There's an amendment at the desk. The clerk will report the amendment.
Anderson moves to amend House File number 3420, the second engrossment. The amendment is coded A11.
The member from Pope, Representative Anderson.
Thank you, Madam Speaker and members. The reason for my amendment really is quite simple. The drought aid package, although it's going to be appreciated by those who receive aid from the bill, is really not big enough. Looking at the numbers The bill provides grants up to $10,000 to eligible farmers, those who suffered losses from last year's devastating drought, losses to their crops and livestock. In testimony before the Ag Committee earlier this year, Commissioner Peterson told us there are about 68,000, give or take a few, 68,000 farms in Minnesota. This bill, if the grants awarded are each $10,000, would give this financial assistance to 500 farmers here in Minnesota, which is really a small percentage of those who suffered losses from last year's drought. And now I realize that not all farmers were hurt by the drought. Some had pretty good crops and some did not have good crops. But this bill even opens up the eligibility for drought assistance to include somebody who earns up to 80%, that's 80% of their income off the farm. So to make these grants available to a few more farmers, my amendment simply takes $3 million out of the DNR portion of the bill, and it transfers that amount to the drought assistance grants, so we can be sure that the money goes to deserving farm families that suffered losses last year. Is currently written in the bill, this money would go to entities that operate public water systems to increase water efficiency, such as inflow, infiltration, and low-flow plumbing fixtures. The bill provides no direction on how grant amounts would be determined, and there is no limit on the grant amounts themselves. I'm not saying that these aren't worthy projects, but again, I think our primary focus here, should be on those families directly affected by last summer's devastating drought. I remember some of those really hot days on my farm last summer, those days of June, July, and August. On my farm, we received less than 4 inches, 3.75 inches to be exact, from the time mid-April through May, June, July, and middle of August when it finally started raining again. And those are the critical months of the growing season, and the crops in my part of the state really suffered. I think you have a drought map that was sent to you electronically, and it shows major parts of our state either in D3 or D4 drought situations. That is excessive or extensive drought in Minnesota. You know, some of those days you'd get up and go outside and it was 90 degrees by noon, and you would watch the crops wither and get smaller. It was hard. I remember going for a ride some afternoons when the conditions were the worst. It was dry and hot all day. And farmers like to look at their crops, drive around and check things out, and it was hard to see what was happening to the crops. You know, the corn leaves were curled up tight as drums, trying to conserve whatever moisture they had. The bottom leaves of the plants, cornstalk plants, were firing and turning brown, and it was just hard to look at. In those that had livestock, it was even more troubling for them. Farmers that had dairy cattle or beef cattle or any livestock, they just didn't have enough feed. The hay crops were extremely short or non-existent, and they faced the really difficult task of either buying expensive hay, really expensive hay, or selling off some of their herds that they have worked years to build up and to have good herds of either beef cattle, dairy cattle, things like that. You know, those times were difficult, they were stressful, and it was emotional for those of us that suffered through that drought last year. So, Madam Speaker, I would ask members to support the amendment, transferring money back into the grant portion of the bill. And, Madam Speaker, I would ask for a roll call vote.
Representative Anderson requests a roll call. Seeing 15 hands, there will be a roll call. Representative Hansen.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, and I would ask members to oppose the amendment. The reason for that, imagine, if you will, that you go to your tap and you turn it on and there's no water. The money where Representative Anderson is taking from are for grants to public water systems to improve water efficiency. Now, as Minnesotans here in the land of 10,000 plus lakes, we take water for granted. But what climate change is showing, what erratic weather is showing, is that we no longer can. We have to build in these water efficiency mechanisms. if your well runs dry, if your public well water runs dry. It's not that easy in some places of the state to just drill deeper and find water. It's not that easy to just go to the river and find water. So conserving water is something we will have to think about in Minnesota. This $3 million appropriation is a start in this existing world that we live in this world where we're in a continuing drought. It helps out Minnesotans everywhere by providing those grants to communities for water conservation. So I'd ask you to oppose the Anderson Amendment.
Representative Sundin.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And to address this amendment, I'd just like to point out that they're taking money from the tribal governments, townships, and the municipalities, as Chair Hansen described. You know, you're taking from 3 different entities to give to the farmers. I wish we had more money. I wish we could put more money into this, and maybe we can continue working on that. But to rob from 3 different entities, you know, you're stealing from Peter, Paul, and Mary, for crying out loud. just to accommodate a little different distribution of these funds. So I'm going to urge a no vote today, and I pledge to Representative Anderson will continue to work on this.
Any further discussion on the amendment? The member from Wright, Representative McDonald.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Representative Hansen, I seriously doubt that $3 million that'll be taken from this bill to be used for the important farmers who feed us will have any effect whatsoever on your faucet drinking water. If that's the case, we're in a lot of trouble, folks. So $3 million, very appropriate, very necessary for farmers, especially old McDonald farmers. So I encourage you to vote green on Representative Anderson's bill.
Seeing no further discussion, the clerk will take the roll on the amendment. Members, please vote. We're voting on the Anderson Amendment. Will the clerk please call the names of the members who've not yet voted?
Baker.
Baker, aye.
Baker, aye. Davids.
David's aye.
Davids, aye. Davney.
Davney, no.
Davney, no. Frazier.
Frazier, no.
Frazier, no. Gomez.
Gomez, no.
Gomez, no. Gruenhagen.
Gruenhagen, aye.
Gruenhagen, aye. Hausman.
Hausman, no.
Hausman, no. Heinzman.
Heinzman, aye.
Heinzman, aye. Kreshaw.
Grisha, aye.
Kreshaw, aye. Swazinski.
Swazinski, you betcha.
What? I didn't get that. Swazinski.
Swazinski, aye.
Swazinski, aye.
The clerk will close the roll. There being 65 ayes and 69 nays, the motion does not prevail. The amendment is not adopted. There are no further amendments at the desk. The clerk will give the bill its third reading.
Third reading, House File Number 3420.
Third reading. Discussion to the bill. The member from Hennepin, Representative Bang.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Members, I rise in support of this bill. I just want to share a story of my constituent who is a farmer and sells produce at the Brooklyn Center Farmers Market. She doesn't farm close to home. She farms actually in greater Minnesota, miles away from home. She'll get up early before sunrise, wash and prep her produce from the night she picked before traveling all the way down to sell the farmers market here in Brooklyn Center and the rest of Twin Cities area. The drought last year was so severe, she estimated she lost about 40% of her produce. For a small farmer, that is staggering. That is nearly half of her income. Because she is a small farmer, a lot of federal programs don't really tailor to her needs and often don't qualify for crop insurance. This drought relief will provide direct assistance to small producers that should have happened last year. Before I conclude, I want to note of the observations I've seen as a member who've been here for 2 terms. How quickly we all jump in supporting our farmers. Last year, when dairy producers were in trouble, we sent help, no questions asked. This year, it's our livestock producers and specialty producers. But here at the Capitol, right next door, we see people living in tents, people experiencing homelessness. And as we go through sessions in the next couple of weeks, if we can offer unwavering support to farmers going through a crisis, to my colleagues on the other side of the aisle, let's offer the same kind of support to people experiencing homelessness, to people going through a crisis closer here at the Capitol. Thank you, Madam Speaker. That is all.
Discussion to the bill. The member from Meeker, Representative Erdahl.
Thank you, Madam Speaker and members. And I certainly want to support or speak in support of drought relief for our farmers. It was a very trying time for them last summer. But what I wanted to point out was an inconsistency that I discovered. And we can't address it here. I think it has to be done federally. But a farmer called me up and said that he couldn't get drought relief. And the reason was that the whole county has to have the same designation. So in other words, if you live in a county, let's say divided in half, and you are in the drought declared half, and another half of the county is not, then you don't get help because the whole county isn't. So I was not aware of it. I don't know if many of you were as well, but it's something that I think, I guess a little pressure has to be put on the federal representatives to see to it that that situation is addressed. Thank you.
The member from Dakota, Representative Hansen.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. And members, I'd ask for your support for this combination bill that provides practical support for both farmers and the public sector, helping out with forestry throughout the state, helping out with water efficiency throughout the state, where the drought was one of the largest droughts we've had in recent years. But as I alluded to earlier, we're going to continue to have extreme weather conditions. And we've already established a disaster fund. We've done that several years ago. But dealing with climate change and dealing with the erratic weather, we're going to be dealing with that in all of our jurisdictions. This short-term help is needed now. So I'd ask you to support this and then work on the additional support and help and preparation that we're going to need for the climate change effects that are going to come.
The member from Olmsted, Representative Quam.
Thank you, Madam Speaker and members. And just like a lot of farm bills, there's a lot of money in the bill that doesn't go to take care of the farmers or the issues they face. The other thing is, across the state, farmers realize some farmers get rain, some don't. Sometimes you get third crop, sometimes you barely get one crop of hay for your cattle. And what's disappointing, besides the fact that you're taking millions out of this farm bill for non-farm, is that you're also allowing for a randomization of farmers. Instead of prioritizing the worst hit parts of the state, the farmers that have suffered the most, to be the first ones that get priority. Every farmer, when there's less rain, takes a bit of a hit. But parts of our state took devastating hits. And having a bill that randomly draws instead of focusing on those that need the most is very disappointing.
The member from Pope, Representative Anderson.
Thanks again, Madam Speaker. And Representative Quam raises a good point. And would Representative Hansen yield for a question?
He will yield. Representative Anderson.
Thanks, Madam Speaker. Representative Hansen, in committee you offered an amendment that we accepted, it was passed, but a little bit of confusion. On page 2 of the bill, Subdivision 2 lays out a pretty prescriptive method of allocating these grants, beginning with the worst areas, D4, Drought Division 4, and on down to D3 and D2. But then going back up to line 2.15, it says notwithstanding Subdivision 2. And that's where we get talking about if more applications come in, we're going to evidently put them in a hat and draw out at random. Could you clarify that your intent is to still prioritize the areas that had the most severe drought, Division 4, D4, D3, and so forth?
Representative Hansen.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. And Representative Anderson, if you could, I'm looking for your notwithstanding portion. So that's
It's page 2, line 15, 1-5.
215, okay. So that's in the subdivision 1 that must accept applications for at least 5 business days. And the reason for that was that, as you remember during committee, that the original provision was on a first come, first served basis. And so we wanted to make sure that there was not an impact of the digital divide, that people could do a paper application and provide that in. It's my understanding that the way we have that totaled is if the total application, which is over the appropriation of $5.1 million, up to that point, you're still in the prioritization of D4, D3, D2. You're prioritizing within that unless you go over. And then if you go over, the way I read that is that it would then go to the randomization so that you're not, again, the option here was whether it was first come, first serve, or whether it be randomized. Is that your understanding?
Representative Anderson.
Madam Speaker, thank you. Again, it's a bit confusing. So, Representative Hansen, we want to make sure that this money goes to those that need it the worst. So, if we get over the $5 million in requests, and that's why this should have been bigger. My goodness, there's a whole lot more damage out there than $5 million. So I think we're heading for some issues here. So again, just to clarify, please, that if we go over the $5 million or $5.1 million mark, are we still going to categorize those that need it the most to get it first? That's just my basic question, Representative Hansen.
He will yield. Representative Hansen.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, and Representative Anderson. You've got the preference when you go into 2.21 2.202122, that you have the preference for D1. And then it says it's after all eligible D4 applications have been paid. So you're going D4 first. Then you give preference to D3, D2, and then you've got if total applications available in a given drought classification, then those awards are at random. So the way I read that is you have randomization within D4, D3, D2. If you look at 2.26, 2.27, 2.28, it says if the applications exceed the funding available in a given drought classification. So does that help?
Representative Anderson.
Thanks again, Madam Speaker. Yeah, I agree with you, except for the wording on 2.15 that says notwithstanding subdivision 2. So under that language, subdivision 2 can be thrown out and doesn't matter if some of those conditions are not met. But I won't belabor the point. Hopefully this is going to go to a conference committee, and I think we need to take a closer look at that provision, if that'd be okay. Okay, thank you. Yeah, I'm going to support the bill, Madam Chair, and I just want to add that one of the latest newsletters from CSG, Council of State Governments, came out, and an article in there, our neighboring state, Wisconsin, allocated $100 million of federal COVID dollars for pandemic relief. And the last round of payments was $50 million, and that was in December, this past December of 2021. My point being that we all had pandemic issues and such, and drought issues as well, and Wisconsin allocated $100 million to farmers in their state. And we are doing a $10.1 million drought aid package. Again, we appreciate getting what we are, but in light of the scope of the damages that we had last year, it just isn't enough. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
The member from Wright, Representative Lucero.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. And just a quick question for Chair Hansen, if he would yield.
He will yield. Representative Lucero.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, and thank you, Chair Hansen. I was just reading the bill here, and I just have a quick question of clarification on line 4.6. It speaks about who qualifies to be an applicant for the grant, 5.5 million, and one of the qualifying entities is a private forest land owner. And I just didn't see a definition in the bill, so I'm wondering, is there a definition for a private forest land owner somewhere else in statute that this might refer to? Or if you could just provide clarity, who are private forest land owners? Thank you.
Representative Hansen.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. And Representative Lucero, I think you can order trees from the DNR right now as a private landowner that you can purchase, I think, similar to the trees that we give out on Arbor Day. So there are private landowners who get trees from the DNR, also through the soil and water conservation districts. So there's a couple existing mechanisms that go out there. When you look at the tribal, county, and private forest land owners, you're not going to have that direct, you can have that ordering that goes to the DNR. However, we lost a number of trees at the DNR nursery. So that's part of what we're trying to restore and replant those trees to get them out so they can get out to private landowners, out to the public landowner, us, and then also through those existing mechanisms. So you as a private landowner can go to your local soil and water conservation district, or you can go on the DNR website and order trees. However, they've been impacted by the drought. So that's the intent there. I think there probably are definitions in both soil and water and in DNR law because of the tree nurseries that are there for a public purpose.
Representative Lucero.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, and thank you, Chair Hansen, for that. I was hoping the answer was going to be that a forest land owner would be a special category or something of a larger, more broad scope. But if I understood your answer correctly, a private forest land owner could just simply be any private person who happens to have a few trees on their private land. And that, to me, creates concern because anybody who has trees that have died, including myself, on their property, I don't think necessarily should qualify for something like that. That should be for a larger type a category, I think, separate than that. So this language, Madam Speaker, causes me concern. Thank you.
The member from Carlton, the author of the bill, Representative Sundin.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And thanks for the discussion, especially from Representative Anderson. We will continue to work on this. Thank you very much for your comments. Well, Governor Walz and Commissioner Peterson were early advocates for providing assistance to producers who experienced the most devastating impacts of the drought. This is an issue that crosses political party lines. I appreciate the efforts of every member of the House Ag Committee that voted in support of this bill, as well as many across the state who have advocated for, offered input, and were willing to work to develop a package that balances providing timely assistance to all affected farmers with public and legislative accountability. I think this is a reasonable and responsible solution. I thank the Chamber for their discussion today and urge a green vote.
The clerk will take the roll on the bill. Members, please vote.
Ready to call them.
Will the chief clerk please call the names of the members who have not yet voted?
Baker.
Baker votes aye.
Baker, aye. Davids.
Davids votes aye.
Davids, aye. Daphne.
Dabney, aye.
Daphne, aye. Gruenhagen.
Reagan, no.
Gruenhagen, no. Haley. Haley, aye. Hausman.
Houseman, aye.
Hausman, aye. Heinzman.
No. Heinzman, no.
Heinzman, no. Kreshaw.
Kreshaw, no.
Kreshaw, no. Swazinski.
Lozinski, no.
Swazinski, no. Zhang Jie. Zhang Jie, aye.
The clerk will close the roll. There being 101 ayes and 33 noes, the bill is passed and its title agreed to. Motions and resolutions. There are copies of the non-controversial motions at the House desk and online. If there's no objection, we will take action on these motions first. Hearing no objection, the motions prevail.
Margaret moves that House File number 2416 be recalled from the Committee on State Government Finance and Elections and be re-referred to the Committee on Human Services, Finance, and Policy.
The member from Clay, Representative Marquardt, to your motion.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker and members. I have talked to both chairs of those committees, and House File 2416 deals with grants to the White Earth Nation for human services functions. Thank you, members.
Any discussion to the motion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please say aye. Those opposed, please say no. The motion prevails.
Hewitt moves that House File number 3975 be recalled from the Committee on Human Services, Finance, and Policy and be re-referred to the Committee on Health, Finance, and Policy.
Representative Hewitt.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. That is my motion. This is a bill from the department regarding some technical fixes, and we would like to get it in the right committee. I've talked to both chairs, and they both agree.
Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, please say no. The motion prevails.
Listagard moves that House File Number 4042 be recalled from the Committee on Industrial Education and Economic Development, Finance, and Policy and be re-referred to the Committee on Taxes.
The member from St. Louis, Representative Listagard.
Well, thank you, Madam Speaker. That is my motion. I have spoken to that fine gentleman over there and then Gene Pelowski. So this has to do with taconite production tax, and you'll all be shocked that we're going to be spending our own money. So I'd appreciate your support.
Seeing no discussion, all those in favor, please say aye. Those opposed, please say no. The motion prevails.
New Brindley moves that the rules of the House be so far suspended that Senate File Number 2677 be recalled from the Committee on Workforce and Business Development, Finance, and Policy, be given its second and third readings, and be placed upon its final passage.
The member from Chisago, Representative New Brindley.
Thank you, Madam Speaker and members. As House Republicans, we waited until today to do this. We waited until today to try to bring this bill forward, and we did that hoping that House Democrats would do the right thing. Majority Leader Winkler told us earlier in session that we had lots of time. We had plenty of time to deal with the unemployment insurance issue, and unfortunately, the time has now run out. We have 5 days. I waited until today to see if we would calendar a bill. We had a Rules Committee meeting this morning, and if we wanted to calendar bills for our Monday session, our last opportunity to do something about this, that bill would have had to have been calendared today, and it was not. So 5 days. We have 5 days until House Democrats allow our employers to go over the cliff. At a time when we have a $10 billion budget surplus. I cannot believe that I am even standing here doing this. The Senate passed this bill weeks ago, 55-11. But here I am, here we are, trying to protect our employers from a massive tax hike. This bill has gotten one hearing from House Democrats. One hearing from House Democrats, and it has been sitting doing absolutely nothing for a month. Employers are staring down a massive tax increase, and House Democrats are doing nothing. I have to give credit to Governor Walz. He at least has said that we should do this now. We should not hold this bill hostage. We should do it cleanly and get it done. And I appreciate that. I appreciate that he recognizes the unprecedented situation that we are in. We are in a situation where the government shut down our businesses, forcing this debt in our unemployment fund. The government forced this situation. And now I appreciate that Governor Walz has acknowledged and is pushing us to do the right thing. The time to make this right is today. If we don't have this to the governor's desk by Tuesday, we hit a point of no return. We hit a point of no return. We can't go back after Tuesday. The billing cannot be stopped. The governor's administration, Commissioner Grove, have testified to this. They have told us that if we don't get this done by Tuesday, By March 15th,
jump in here
this is how the deputy commissioner described the situation. It creates an unparalleled circumstance. It is extremely complex. It's exceptionally difficult. It will create major problems. It will take unprecedented effort. It will be extremely difficult and administratively complex and cumbersome to deal with it. Last year, we saw House Democrats play politics with the tax relief on PPP loans. They were holding it hostage until the end of session, allowing the state to profit off of the desperately needed tax relief received by employees from the federal government. And they were perfectly content to let the state of Minnesota profit off of that. By the time they finally passed that relief, it took over 6 months for folks to get their money back. This is way more complicated than that. If we don't take care of this unemployment trust fund issue by Tuesday, this is way more complicated. The PPP loans were very simple. There was a direct loan given to a business. There was an amount of money that was taxed. The unemployment trust fund is much more complicated, not only from the aspect that employers all are dealing with experience ratings and a base rate, and now these additional taxes on top of that, but we're also interacting with the feds on this. This is complicated. It took over 6 months for folks to get that money back after the House Democrats allowed their PPP loans to be taxed. It will take far more time than that for folks to receive relief for this if House Democrats do not take care of this now. And that's assuming they decide to do it at all. And if you don't think that this will impact not just businesses, but workers, you are living in la-la land. Gas prices are through the roof. People are literally paying twice as much to heat their homes this year than they did last year. Those costs have doubled. We are seeing the highest inflation that we have seen in my entire lifetime. Record inflation right now. And if you don't think that raising taxes on businesses right now is going to hurt everyone, you are just not living in reality. That's why this bill has bipartisan support. That is why our Democrat governor supports this. That is why Senate Republicans support this. That is why Senate Democrats support this. That is why House Republicans support this. So we are all just waiting for House Democrats to do the right thing. Employers in every one of our districts are waiting for you to do the right thing. I promise you that employers in St. Cloud, Hermantown, Aurora, Rosemount, International Falls, Coon Rapids, certainly my hometown of North Branch, are waiting for you to do the right thing. There is no reason, there is no excuse to raise taxes on employers when we have a $10 billion surplus. And if we don't get this done, it will be because of one caucus. There will be one caucus at the legislature, one that is responsible for that. Please, please do the right thing. Please vote to suspend the rules. Let's get this off the House floor and to the governor's desk so that all of our employers, so that we can save all of our employers and all Minnesotans across the state from more devastation. Members, please vote yes to suspend the rules.
The member from Goodhue, Representative Haley.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, and thank you, members. Thank you, Leader New Brindley, for that excellent explanation of the situation we are in today. It's not very often that in these chambers we have such bipartisan support for an issue, and an issue that impacts Minnesotans all across, north to south, east to west. Let's go back and remember how this whole situation started. The first month of the pandemic, 400,000 Minnesotans lost their jobs. We paid out we had 1.3 million applicants into the UI system from March 2020 to September of 2021. And we paid out $15 billion in UI benefits. Minnesota stepped up to help these workers who are out of their jobs through no fault of their own. And the employers, those that weren't essential manufacturers and staying open, they did the right thing in trying to support their employees, supporting their families. I talked to some business owners this morning that reminded me of what that process was like for them, making those decisions on how to save their business, but their concern first and foremost was their employees. How are their employees going to get through these shutdowns? Those employers did the right thing. Minnesota did the right thing. And now we have to do the last right thing as part of this whole story and this whole experience that we have all been through. And the final chapter is to pass this today. I've served in this body, this is my 6th year. And I've said throughout this process, this has been a rare opportunity where the governor agrees with this proposal, the department agrees with this proposal, the Senate in a bipartisan fashion passed this 55-11. And the House Jobs Committee has heard a bill, and the House Republicans are in support. We're missing one piece of the puzzle, and you're the piece. You are the problem solver that can fix this final right thing to do. Today's the day, as Representative New Brindley stated. We have a deadline, and we can get it done. There's no reason why we can't take action today. This is good government. Let's take this off the table. We've done our work. We've been prepared. We worked on this all fall. We knew this situation was coming, and we came here in February, gavelled in with a developed solution that has bipartisan support. Please, let's do the last right thing and then move on to the rest of the business of governing this state for the rest of the session. I ask for your support to suspend the rules and get this to the governor's desk. Thank you, Madam Speaker, and thank you, members.
The member from Hennepin, Representative Robbins.
Thank you, Madam Speaker and members. I rise in support of this urgency to take up funding the UI Trust Fund and repaying the debt. As my colleagues have said very well, we're at the end of the rope on this, and we really need your support, my colleagues on the other side of the aisle. The governor is with us, the Senate Democrats are with us, Commissioner Grove is with us, the public is with us, and we need you to get this done. I first started talking about this in April of last year. I had the first bill to address the looming tax increase that our employers would be facing. I introduced it last session to set aside the federal COVID money so that we could not be in this situation. This is an unforced error, colleagues. I really ask you to join us in this. I introduced a bill last April. Set aside the federal money. 31 other states used their federal COVID money to do this so that their businesses wouldn't face a double-digit, possibly 6 to 10 year ongoing tax increase. Our businesses can't afford this. As was referenced, we already did this to the businesses last year when we kept stringing them along about the PPP loan. Oh, we'll take care of it. We'll get it by the first April deadline. Oh, we'll get it by the extended May deadline. We missed that, members, and it was of genuine cost to employers. I have a woman in my district who has a small business, and she has fought to keep her business alive. And because businesses are open, that doesn't mean they're out of the woods. When when they were shut down, she had to take out a loan. And then she went through all this and eventually got a PPP loan. But then when she owed the tax, she had to take out an additional loan to pay her taxes and then wait for her PPP refund. I can't tell you the number of businesses in Maple Grove that called me when quarterly taxes were due in December and they still hadn't received their refund. They were like, what is going on? The government owes us money and we still have to pay our quarterly taxes. Now we're about to do that again. Members, please, let's learn from our mistakes last session and let's get this done. If we don't do this by next week and then eventually get it done later in session, Commissioner Grove has testified at how complicated this will be to claw this back and refund the tax to businesses. This is not simple. This is tied up with federal UI statutes. That's why the deadline is here. It's not a state deadline. It's tied to federal statute. We are just shooting our businesses in the foot, and it's an unforced error that we don't need to go down this path. So I'm begging you, please join us, please meet the deadline, and then we can deal with all the other bills that we still have a lot of work to do this session. But please, let's not tie this into all of that. Let's get a clean bill, let's get it done, and let's give businesses some certainty and some breathing room. They don't need this double-digit tax increase. Thank you, members.
The member from Washington, Representative Frankie.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Members, I rise in support of this motion. As a small business owner, what we've all gone through over the last 2 years is just horrendous. Once again, here we sit, trying and struggling and making it through by the skin of our teeth. Madam Speaker, I'm wondering if Chair Knorr would yield for a question.
He will yield. Representative Frankie.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Chair Knorr, now I understand right now we're asking to take up Senate File 2677, but I'm wondering where your bill is at that we voted out of committee.
Representative Knorr.
Thank you, Madam Chair and Representative Frankie. I think the bill is in Ways and Means, and it's ready to go, and that's House File 1035.
Representative Frankie.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Thank you, Chair Knorr. Yes, we voted it out of committee. Some of us supported it, some of us didn't. Now, here we sit once again playing politics with Minnesotans' lives. Now, I don't know about my friends over on the other side of the aisle, but we've been here, done that. We did it all last year. And as a small business owner, small business employer, struggling to pay my people, paying them more, paying higher costs, higher wages, inflation. Today I've been telling a story about the price of wheat bread at my tiny little cafe has just skyrocketed because of the global situation we're in. And here we sit once again playing political games. I wonder, Madam Speaker, if Chair Knorr would yield for another question.
He will yield. Representative Frankie.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Chair Knorr, could you explain to me the process of how we get a bill signed into law?
Representative Knorr.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I think we've been doing, Representative Frankie, we've been doing that for a long time. So you get an idea, you bring it to the committee, you bring it to the floor, and you vote for it, and you send it to the governor. So we're still in that process on this bill, and we're getting that bill ready to go. So I appreciate you asking that question, which I think we need to be teaching civic to all kids, and this will be a good, important conversation lesson to learn from.
Representative Frankie.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Thank you, Chair Knorr. I appreciate that answer. And I know we all giggle around here, but this is serious business. Because as a small business owner, as I'm working day in, day out, not only trying to keep my business afloat, but do this position also, I watch the news and I pay attention. And here we sit once again, and last night on the news, I hear, well, once again, Jeremy Miller, Speaker of the House, and the governor have not reached an agreement on the UI bill. Well, I'll tell you what, it's not for them to make the decision, it's for us. We pass the bills and we put it up to the governor. So I don't know what this caucus is waiting over there to use their election certificates to help these small businesses that are struggling right now. But if not this bill, then at least support Chair Knorr's bill, and let's get it to conference committee. Let's show that we know what our election certificates are for, and let's move forward with this and help our small businesses and the people that they employ. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
The member from Sibley, Representative Gruenhagen.
Oh, thank you, Madam Speaker. Yeah, I would just add my voice, and a lot's been said already, but I will relay. I could relay a number of stories. We just went through the COVID pandemic, and out here in rural Minnesota, so many of these businesses, small businesses with a few employees, were forced to shut down. I just remember one lady, she called me. They had bought a restaurant a few years ago, and they had stuck their life savings into it, members. And she was just crying because she didn't know how they were going to make ends meet anymore with the shutdown of the COVID. And now we want to allow a tax increase, basically, by raising the unemployment insurance premium to these employers who've hung in there, tried to do the best, cared about their employees. I'm not trying to point fingers at anybody, but I do think the timetable has come and almost gone to do the right thing. So I would ask you members on the other side of the aisle, just, regardless of whether we brought it up or you brought it up or whatever, just remember, let's be Minnesotans on this issue. Let's not play party politics on it, because it affects people's lives, businesses who hire people, and affects those employees also, which we all represent. So members, please consider supporting this and getting this across the goal line. I mean, the Senate's on board, both sides of the aisle, the governor's on board. Here we have a chance to do something before the deadline comes up. Please, please think through and let's do the right thing for the people of Minnesotans. Okay, I know that you care, and now let's put the green votes up. Thank you, members and Madam Speaker.
The member from Hennepin, Representative Winkler.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Members, I urge a no vote on the motion. We, in fact, continue to have time to work on the UI issue. Representative New Brindley, I would refer you to Minnesota statutes rather than comments from the Commissioner of Deed to understand what the real deadlines are. Quarterly payments for UI are due on April 30th. So no dollar will go out the door, no cliff will occur on March 15th. In addition, Minnesota statutes section 268.057, subdivision 7, says that employers who overpay unemployment insurance tax amounts for a quarter can receive a refund. So if we change the amount that they are required to pay, they can get that money back under existing law. We have a system in place to address this issue. And we have a willingness on the DFL side to address the UI issue. We have, as you have pointed out, billions of dollars to spend, and we have priorities for spending it. Included in those priorities can be help for those businesses. I think it's important to point out that the vast majority of the benefits that would go out under this bill would go to very large employers. So while we hear rhetoric about small businesses being helped, we don't hear the rest of the story, which is that 52% of the benefits would go to the largest businesses in the state. And I think, I don't know if everybody does. I generally think Target is a pretty good Minnesota company. They're known for decent corporate citizenship. They come out of a long tradition of successful retail business in Minnesota, and they have profited very handsomely during the pandemic. They had $106 billion in revenue in 2021, which is up over 35% over 2 years, and had $14 billion just in profits last year. I think that is a sign of a successful Minnesota business doing very well through very difficult times. The bill that you think is an urgency to pass would provide Target with $11 million in tax cuts. So, and that might be a good thing. It might be okay to pass along tax cuts to extremely successful businesses. If we want to be a generous state, we want to support every business in the state, even very large ones. We want to support the small ones. We want to help everybody that we can, and that might be a very good thing. But what's interesting is your comment, Representative Haley. You said that passing this bill is the last right thing to do. And that's our concern. Our concern is that passing $2.7 billion to bail out the UI fund is the last thing that you want to do. That is the evidence that we are seeing from the Minnesota Senate. Today in the Senate, there was an opportunity for Republicans to support a bill that would be a combination, a very obvious deal. We put out a bill with $1 billion for workers. There was one Republican vote for that bill. One. $1 billion for workers. There is bipartisan support for a bill to help businesses. We could do both. But so far, the answer to doing both is forget about it. We are not interested in helping workers. We are not interested in doing any spending. We don't want to spend any money on housing. We don't want to spend any money on child care. We don't want to spend any money on health care affordability. We don't want to spend any money at the state that will help workers afford the cost of living. We don't want to spend any money to provide a hero pay check for all the frontline workers who kept us going through those many months. The challenge with this bill is not that we don't want to help businesses. The challenge with this bill is that you don't want to help anybody else. You want to understand why our economy favors those at the top. And I'm not just talking about Jeff Bezos and Amazon, who would also get a very nice benefit from this bill. I'm talking about all the people who have figured out how to move up the ladder in this economy. There's still a good number of people who have figured out how to be successful. But on average, the people in your districts are struggling more now in their jobs than they were a generation ago. People do not have access to living wage jobs. They don't have access to affordable higher education, affordable health care. They have all of these barriers. And your answer to that problem is to give the biggest businesses the biggest check you possibly can. That will continue us down the road that we've been on for the last generation. And this caucus will say no. We will say no to doing only work for business. We will say no to only helping those at the top. We will say no to creating an economy of haves and have-nots. We have done it for too long. We're not here to answer to anybody else. We're not here to answer to any other part of the administration, any other part of the party, any other caucus. We are saying if you won't help workers, we should not help anyone. They should be first. That's our priority. Come to the table with us. Help us out. Help the Republicans in the Senate recognize that we have to help workers in this economy, and then we can help businesses too. But if it's all one way, if it's all money for the people at the top, if it's all money to help big employers with the bailout of the UI fund, then the answer is no. We need to get both things done. We can accomplish it. I don't know why you've decided to dig in your heels against the people who are saving lives in your own districts, but that's what you've done. We need to get past it. You need to say yes, and we can all say yes to support Minnesotans throughout the state together. But until you're ready to say yes, the answer was going to be no.
The member from Olmsted, Representative Quam.
The audacity of saying avoiding an increase of a tax is a tax break, a tax cut. No, you got a leaky main. Oh, we can fix it next month. Well, if it breaks, oh, there's a way you can get a refund. I'm not hearing anything of why we can't do it now. I hear a lot of, what about the workers? Employers, if you don't employ anybody, there are businesses with no employees, you would not have any impact. You employ a lot of people, there's more of an impact because you're providing jobs and work for the people. The audacity when the state said, you must, as an employer, shut down, and if you don't, they were fined. Some people sat in jail because of it. So did they have a choice? No. The state government of Minnesota said, you've got to close. I'm not arguing that decision. I'm arguing employers are the ones that provide the jobs to all of us. And the audacity, it's not a tax cut. I was going to raise your taxes $5 billion, but I didn't, so you got a tax cut. I think Minnesotans aren't that silly to fall for that kind of line. There's no reason, no excuse to not get this done. So do it.
The member from Chisago, Representative New Brindley.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I'm a little dumbfounded by the word salad from the majority leader a minute ago. And I think we may just have heard what we like to call gaslighting. I don't even know where to start. Actually, I will start by asking for a roll call, Madam Speaker.
Representative New Brindley requests a roll call. Seeing 15 hands, there will be a roll call. Representative New Brindley.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. With that, boy, I guess I will start where Leader Winkler started. He said that there is no deadline and that these bills aren't actually due till April 30th. And apparently, Leader Winkler understands the inner workings of the department and how billing works better than the departments. That's a little confusing to me. But what we heard again from the department and from the commissioner is that if we don't get this done by March 15th, we create a situation that has an unparalleled circumstance. It's extremely complex to roll this back. It is exceptionally difficult to roll this back. It will create major problems to roll this back. It will require unprecedented effort to roll this back. These words are quotes. I am quoting the commissioner and the deputy commissioner. It will be extremely difficult and administratively complex and cumbersome. Those are not my words. That is not my opinion. That is the opinion of the people who actually do this work. That is the opinion of the people who will actually be required to figure out how to fix the mess that the House Democrats are creating. There's all this talk about our successful Minnesota business Target, and obviously I think we all love Target, but let's be clear about a couple of things. Number one, the government did not shut Target down during COVID. Target was allowed to operate along with lots of big businesses, particularly big box stores. They were allowed to operate during the pandemic. The small businesses were not allowed to operate. Selling the same goods didn't matter. Providing the same services didn't matter. The government shut them down. The government forced them to lay off their employees, and thankfully, we have a system in place. We have an unemployment insurance system in place to take care of those workers when they are forced into layoffs by the government. Now, Leader Winkler chose to ignore one important fact, and that is we don't get to parse out who gets UI relief and who doesn't. That's not up to us. That's up to the federal government, and they have told us that we can't do it. So as much as you would like to scream about big businesses getting a tax break, which is absurd, what this really means is that almost 50% of this money, almost 50%, and that is Leader Winkler's statistics, so I will take his word for that, but almost 50% of this tax relief is going to our small businesses. That's where it's going. That's who it's helping. Our Main Street mom and pop businesses. You mentioned holding this hostage for things that you want to get done. And I would remind you that that bill passed off this floor weeks ago. So as it turns out, your colleagues here in the House have nothing to do with that. But your colleagues in the House are asking you today to do the right thing on this bill. And what a bizarre comment that the billing starts on the 15th, the billing starts Tuesday, and that can't be rolled back. But hey, the payments aren't due till April 30th. Are you suggesting that businesses don't pay their bills when they get them? What are we doing here? What are we doing? My husband and I are business owners, and as it turns out, when we get a bill, we pay it. That's what responsible business owners do, and that's what they will do in this circumstance. And it's not so simple that they can get that money back. I can go through the list of description. I can go through the description again from the commissioner, but I think we get it. It's not that simple. It's not that simple. Majority Winkler told us that it's not that they don't want to help employers. Well, you certainly don't give a rip about hurting them, because that's what you're doing if you don't pass this bill today. We have hit the point of no return. Get it done.
The member from Wright, Representative Lucero.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, and I'm wondering if the Majority Leader would yield.
He will yield. Representative Lucero.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, and thank you, Representative Winkler. Could you just repeat, I want to make sure I heard correctly, you had referenced the commissioner, and contrary to his words, could you just repeat what you had said so I can make sure I heard that correctly?
Representative Winkler.
Madam Speaker, Representative Lucero, it's a little strange to hear you disembodied. We're so used to seeing you so colorfully displayed in the House. But what I said was that Minnesota law already covers when payments are due and a system for providing refunds if there's overpayment, so we have time to address this issue.
Representative Lucero.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, and I was not privy to whatever the commissioner had said. So when I heard the Majority Leader's words, the first thoughts in my mind were, was the commissioner ignorant, not knowing what he was talking about, or was he lying? Because what I heard the Majority Leader say is to dismiss and ignore what the commissioner of the Governor Walz administration said. So again, is he ignorant or is he lying? Just a thought. Thank you.
Seeing no further discussion, the clerk will take the roll on the motion. Members, please vote. Will the chief clerk please call the names of the members who've not yet voted?
Baker.
Baker votes aye.
Baker, aye. Davids.
David votes aye.
Davids, aye. Davney.
Dabney, no.
Davney, no. Frazier.
Frazier, no.
Frazier, no. Gomez.
Gomez, no.
Gomez, no. Gruenhagen.
Gruenhagen, aye.
Gruenhagen, aye. Hausman.
Hausman, no.
Hausman, no. Katiza Watun.
Katiza Watun, no.
Katiza Watun, no. Kreshaw.
Kreshaw, aye.
Kreshaw, aye. Lucero.
Lucero, yes.
Lucero, aye. Swazinski.
Swazinski, aye.
Swazinski, aye. Zhang Ti.
Zhang Ti, no.
Zhang Ti, no.
The clerk will close the roll. There being 66 ayes and 67 nays, the motion does not prevail.
Hassan, Noor, Gomez, Zhangje, and Hollins are introducing House Resolution number 10, a House resolution expressing the sense of the House of Representatives in opposing the imposition of dress codes upon women in colleges and schools in India. The resolution is being referred to the Committee on Rules and Legislative Administration.
Announcements. The member from Ramsey, Representative Moran.
Madam Speaker, point of personal privilege.
State your point of personal privilege.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. So, Madam Speaker and members, on this past Saturday, I received an email from a constituent of mine asking me if I would read a proclamation on the House floor. And of course, I said, yes, I will be honored, for this woman, which you will hear from about today, is a hero of the African American community, and I hope of all Americans. We just came out of Black History Month, and on March the 8th, we celebrated International Women's Day. Today, we celebrate Harriet Tubman with a proclamation celebrating her bicentennial birth year. So this is the proclamation. Whereas Araminta Harriet Tubman Ross was born in March of 1822 in Dorchester County, Maryland, on a plantation where her parents were enslaved. And whereas, after escaping from slavery, herself in 1849, Harriet Tubman led hundreds of enslaved people to freedom through the Underground Railroad. She became known as the Moses of her people through her social and political activism to help ensure that our nation always honor its promise of liberty and opportunity for all. Madam Speaker, I will yield to Representative Richardson.
Representative Richardson.
Whereas after the war, she purchased a farm in Auburn, New York, and established the Harriet Tubman Home for the Aged, which anchored the remaining years of her life. Her home and estate are part of the Harriet Tubman Historical Park in Auburn, New York. And whereas Harriet Tubman was an active proponent of women's suffrage and worked alongside women such as Susan B. Anthony, and Madam Speaker, I would like to yield to Representative Hollins.
Representative Hollins.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Whereas Harriet Tubman continued working for justice and for the cause of human dignity until her death on March 10th, 1912, she was buried with military honors in Fort Hill Cemetery in New York. And whereas both U.S. Presidents George H.W. Bush and Barack Obama signed proclamations to honor Harriet Tubman's life, work, and accomplishments for our country. I would like to yield the rest of my time to Representative Agbaje.
Representative Agbaje.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Whereas on February 17, 2021, the U.S. Senate passed the Harriet Tubman Bicentennial Commemorative Coin Act, requiring the Department of Treasury to mint coins commemorating Harriet. The Treasury is redesigning the $20 bill to put Tubman on the new note. The plan was first announced by former President Barack Obama's administration. President Joe Biden renewed that commitment shortly after taking office in 2021. And not all Americans experience the democratic process in the same way. Minnesota is fortunate to have a strong network of community organizations committed to promoting justice and freedom for all citizens in honor of Harriet Tubman's legacy. And I yield the rest of my time to Representative Moran.
Representative Moran.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. And whereas, in observance of the 200th anniversary of her birth in March, we remember Harriet Tubman. Commitment to freedom and to rededicate ourselves to the timeless principles she upheld. Now, therefore, I, Tim Walz, Governor of Minnesota, do hereby proclaim Thursday, March the 10th, 2022, as Harriet Tubman Bicentennial Day in the state of Minnesota, and is signed by our Governor Tim Walz and also Secretary of State Steve Simon. Thank you, Madam Speaker and members.
Announcements. Representative Winkler.
Madam Speaker, I move that when the House adjourns today, it adjourns until 3:30 p.m. Monday, March 14th, 2022.
Representative Winkler moves that when the House adjourns today, it adjourns until 3:30 p.m. Monday, March 14th, 2022. All those in favor, please say aye. Those opposed, please say no. The motion prevails. Representative Winkler.
Madam Speaker, I move that the House do now adjourn.
Representative Winkler moves that the House do now adjourn. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, please say no. The motion prevails. The House stands adjourned until Monday, March 14th, 2022 at 3:30 p.m.